Okay, so first we're going to have you start by closing your eyes and clearing your head of any thoughts that might interfere with the process of imagery in order to help you execute the skill. Once you have finished, we're going to start with the physical nature of the movement. So I want you to close your eyes and I will talk through about what you're supposed to be imagining or kind of going over in your head in order to have you execute this correctly. So, for the physical nature of the movement, start by adjusting the hooks on the bar in order to make sure it matches your height. Then you will place your pinky fingers along the marked line on the bar and follow that by holding the bar completely with proper hand placement. So on the bar, there should be a little line that doesn't have the texture. So you just kind of put your pinky fingers on there and then follow it with the rest of your hand. And then place the bar on top of your traps. So in order to do that, you might have to go under it and then kind of wiggle to make sure it feels correctly because it should not be too high or too low. Afterwards, once you pick up the bar, you're going to kind of scoot backwards and you're going to place your feet flat on the ground and keep them shoulder width apart, and then you're going to come down into a sitting position. It's important to keep your chest facing forward and parallel to the rest of your body because if you don't, it could increase your likelihood of you leaning forward into the movement, which is not what we want. So then you must keep your core tight in order to support your back during the movement. And it is important that you create a 90-degree angle with your legs and then come back up without leaning forward in the movement. Make sure to look at the mirror in front of you in order to make sure your form is correct because if it's not, you can possibly injure yourself. When coming back up, do not lock your knees. And then after executing the amount of reps that you want for the set, add more weight as it feels safe. Now, for the specifics of the environment, I want you to imagine what I'm about to describe to you. So imagine being in a public gym on a squat rack with the barbell in front of you. Now imagine you see other people around you training. Now they're more focused on their own workout, so it's important to relax and kind of reduce the amount of anxiety you feel because sometimes a lot of people feel as though others are watching them, judging them. Now imagine everyone's just doing their own thing and you have nothing to worry about. No one really cares what you're doing. Now, feel the temperature of the room. It should be cool. Not too hot, not too cold, but comfortable enough for you to feel comfortable in executing the skill. Now, imagine feeling your feet planted flat on the ground. Not on your tippy toes, not too much on your heels, but completely flat on the ground, as well as the bar on your back. Allow yourself to feel the weight. It might be heavy, it might be light, but just kind of feel the weight on your back. Now, for the type of task is a compound movement. So what this means is that it involves multiple muscle groups. This could be a bit dangerous because it involves a lot of your muscles, so you really have to keep proper mind to muscle connection because it involves mainly your legs, but it also involves your back and your core. It's important to keep this connection between your mind and these muscles in order to keep your core tight, allow more support on your back, and focus on the movement in your legs just to avoid falling forward or backwards or just not being able to execute it properly. because this can also help to prevent injury. Now, the timing of the movement is very important because if you're doing this movement way too fast, you could possibly injure yourself, fall, but if you're doing it too slow, you can also kind of fall too because you're placing too much weight on your legs and the rest of your body. So, squat down slowly. This should be taking about 5 seconds. Once you're in the squatting position, make sure that your knees make a 90-degree angle. Pause for another 5 seconds, and then afterwards, you will come up slowly without locking your knees. Wait another 2 to 3 seconds before you attempt another rep, just to make sure you're not going in and out of the position way too quickly. Now, the reason why we're learning the content of this movement is because the main goal is to increase strength of your legs as well as put on more muscle in that area. And another goal could be eventually to hit more personal records. Now, this should be done correctly because if you add on too much weight too quickly, you could injure yourself. But it's also important to challenge yourself because if you don't challenge yourself, then you're not going to be meeting the goals that you want to achieve. Now, I want you to imagine the emotion behind proper execution of this skill. So, once this skill is done correctly with the right form, you can imagine the feeling of joy and pride in doing it correctly. Now, I want you to also imagine the happiness and the adrenaline that comes with being proud about beating personal records safely. Almost feel your heart pumping, just euphoria and joy about being able to do this correctly. Now, for the perspective of the person, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can imagine it internally or externally. So, I want you to imagine doing this skill internally or in the first person point of view. Do this by imagining yourself viewing your form through the mirror. See how you place your hands on the bar and move under it in order to place it on your back. But it could be more helpful if you imagine you doing this skill externally or in the third person point of view. In my opinion, it might be better if you do this externally because it'll help you really kind of imagine your form, as that's the most important part of doing this correctly. So you can pretend and imagine as if you are the spectator on the other rack, seeing yourself executing this skill from the side in order to be able to make sure that you're not leaning forward. Imagine yourself doing it correctly, so keeping your chest up parallel with the rest of your body and coming down to a 90-degree angle. Or you can imagine to be the spectator behind you in order to make sure that you have correct depth in your squat, because if you do not have correct depth in your squat, basically means you probably won't feel it. Now you can open your eyes and try to execute the barbell squat once you have practiced this imagery. Now, I suggest that you practice this imagery multiple times, probably every day, kind of go through the script in order to make sure that you're ready to perform it, maybe once or twice a day, and then you can go ahead and go to the gym and perform the skill.